Hey everyone! Today we are going on a guided tour, an expedition really, into the incredible new world of open neuroimaging data. Think of this as your personal explorer's guide to these massive, growing libraries of the human brain. And the best part is, they're all accessible right from your own computer. So here's our game plan for the journey. First, we'll get our bearings on this new frontier. Then, we're going to visit 3 huge landmarks: the Human Connectome Project, Open Neuro, and TemplateFlow. After that, we'll pick up our central toolkit, which is DataLad. And finally, we'll cast our eyes toward the future of discovery. All right, let's jump in. You know, for decades, neuroscience was a pretty siloed world. Individual labs collected their own data, and that was that. But there's been this huge shift. We've moved into a new era of data sharing, creating this incredible collective resource that is totally changing how we study the brain. And this gets right to the heart of why this all matters so much. Seriously, what if you could ask a totally new question about the brain, but instead of spending years and, let's be honest, millions of dollars to scan people, you could just tap into amazing, high-quality data that's already out there? Well, that's exactly the problem these data repositories solve. So what are we really talking about here? Well, a neuroimaging repository is basically a giant online library for brain scans. It's this web-accessible archive that's just packed with brain imaging data, all ready for researchers like you to download and start analyzing. Okay, our first stop is a true monument in this new landscape, the Human Connectome Project. You'll hear it called the HCP. This thing was a wildly ambitious, totally foundational effort to map the wiring of the human brain on a scale that nobody had ever even tried before. And the sheer scope of it is wow. It's not just one study. It covers the connectomes of over 1,000 healthy young adults. It maps the brain across our entire lifespan, from tiny babies all the way through development and aging. And on top of that, it includes at least 18 different projects that are actively studying how brain connections are related to diseases like Alzheimer's, epilepsy, and depression. Now, what really makes the HCP data stand out is the quality. I mean, we are talking exceptionally high-grade scans, often collected on these super powerful, specialized 7-Tesla MRI machines. And to wrangle all this amazing data, the HCP team had to develop its own unique software and processing pipelines from the ground up. But here's a really important thing for any data explorer to know. Because the HCP was such a pioneer, it actually got started before a universal data standard called BIDS was developed. This means the HCP uses its own rules, its own conventions, and its own data structure. And that's a key difference from where we're headed next. So let's travel to our next stop, Open Neuro. If the HCP is like a foundational monument, think of Open Neuro as the modern, bustling city square. It's the place where the whole community comes together to share their data using a common, standardized language. And you can see the differences are pretty fundamental. Where HCP uses its own specialized format, Open Neuro is built entirely around that BID standard we just mentioned. While HCP focused on very specific, deeply scanned groups of people, Open Neuro is wide open. It accepts submissions from the entire research community. So their whole purpose is different. One was for deep mapping, the other is for creating a public commons for sharing. And that community approach leads to some incredible diversity. Open Neuro isn't just a one-trick pony with MRI data. You can find PET scans, MEG, EEG, even super-specific intracranial EEG data. It's a truly multimodal repository that really reflects all the different ways we have of looking at the brain. So here's the bottom line. If you're a researcher and you've gone to the trouble of organizing your data using that BID standard, Open Neuro is the spot. It's become the central hub, the go-to place for making standardized neuroscience data available to everyone. All right, so we've seen where to get the actual experimental data. But to find your way around in all that data, you need good maps, right? That brings us to our third destination, TemplateFlow, which is like the essential library of brain atlases. Now, TemplateFlow has a totally different mission. You don't go there to find scans from individual people. You go there for the reference brains, the standardized templates and atlases. These are what allow researchers to compare results from different studies and different people, all in a common shared space. And inside this archive, you'll find an amazing collection of these maps. There are the classic 3D templates like the M&I brain that you might have seen, but also surface-based templates for looking at the brain's cortex. And it's not just for adult humans. There are templates for kids, for infants, and even for non-human animals, like the rat brain. It's a really comprehensive collection. Okay, so we've surveyed the big data repositories in the Atlas archive. But how do you actually use these massive data sets without your computer grinding to a halt? You need a specialized vehicle for your data journey. And that vehicle is called DataLad. So what is it? Put simply, DataLad is a really clever version control tool that's built specifically for grabbing these huge data sets. I mean, a single neuroimaging project can easily be hundreds of gigabytes, sometimes terabytes. Downloading all of that at once is just not practical. DataLad fixes that problem. Here's how the magic works. First, you use DataLad to install what's called a skeleton of the dataset. This happens in a flash because you're just downloading the file names and structure, not the actual heavy data. Then, with a simple command, you get only the specific files you actually need for your analysis. And finally, you get to work on this nice, lightweight, local copy without completely filling up your hard drive. It's a game changer. This quote from a paper really sums it up perfectly. The key phrases to focus on are deferring the retrieval of file contents and permitting lightweight views. It's all about having access to everything without the burden of actually holding everything on your machine at once. So we've toured the major landmarks, we've equipped ourselves with a seriously powerful tool. This brings us to the future and to the power that these open resources put in our hands. It's all about charting your own course of discovery. So let's do a super quick recap of our Explorers Toolkit. You've got the Human Connectome project for absolutely top-tier quality data. But remember, it's in its own format. You have Open Neuro, the central hub for a huge diversity of data that all follows that modern BID standard. You have TemplateFlow for all the essential maps and atlases. And you have DataLad, the efficient tool that lets you grab it all. And all of this leaves us with one final and I think really powerful question. Now that we have this global access to thousands upon thousands of brain scans, representing the full spectrum of development, aging, and disease, what are the truly fundamental questions about ourselves, about our health, our behavior, about what it means to be human, that we are finally equipped to answer? The map is in your hands now.